First, let's define what I mean by Stone Age art. Stone Age refers to anything before 3000 BC. This includes the Paleolithic, Mesolithic, and Neolithic eras. Art is going to include cave paintings, figurines, pottery, and other decorative objects. Some objects will have a purpose other than pure aesthetics, but art is allowed to have more than one purpose. We will not be including arrowheads, skeletons, fossils, structures, etc. Let's get started with some of our oldest examples of art, cave paintings. 40,000 BC Australia is our first stop to see the Kimberley rock art. Multiple sites contain paintings made by the ancestors of Australian Aboriginals. There are kangaroos, bush spirits, a guy with no finger, freaky things that you don't want to think about, and much more. You might say to yourself, what's the big deal? A child could draw stuff like this. Well, then here's a quiz for you. I've traced 3 pieces of art. I'll give you 5 seconds to guess which one is a prehistoric drawing. Time's up! They're actually all Picassos. Everyone has a different opinion on what they consider good art, but the fact that people fighting giant kangaroos and thylacolios took the time to make this cave art demands respect. These figures, though minimalist, are recognizable, contain their own style, and continue to speak to us thousands of years in the future. This art is invaluable to art and to history. Cave paintings from the Stone Age usually display similar content no matter where they are in the world. Images of animals are prevalent everywhere. In Namibia, around 5,000 years after the Kimberley rocks, the Apollo 11 cave depicts giraffes, lions, and bees, all of which are still local to the area. Another example is the Chauvet caves in France, created around 30,000 BC. Hundreds of images are painted inside a cave system, which was preserved when a landslide buried the original entrance. There are images of lions, deer, hyenas, rhinos, horses, mammoths, and many other Ice Age species. Some figures appear to have shading, suggesting the artist had an understanding of depth and how light casts shadows. Some animals are drawn as if in motion, such as the rhino, whose horn is repeated as if its head was bobbing up and down. Layers of handprints near the entrance show several years of visitors to the cave. Handprints were created by blowing paint out of their mouths to get an airbrushed outline effect. Compare this technique to the initial stamping method of making a handprint, and you can see why they changed methods to retain the outline of fingers. Archaeologists guess that the purpose of these drawings was to record historical events or support a religious function. Perhaps it was part of a ceremony to enter the darkness of a cave and perform religious ceremonies. Some believe shamans would take psychedelic mushrooms in an attempt to have visions. One can imagine them seeing the animal pictures come to life in the light of a campfire. Stone Age peoples also made 3-dimensional art. Figurines and miniature statues have survived when made from long-lasting materials such as ivory and stone as opposed to wood. The Lion Man from 40 to 35,000 BC, the Venus of Hohlfels from the same time period, and the Venus of Willendorf from 30,000 BC are all great examples. The Lion Man may appear to be an ancient persona, but archaeologists believe it was a depiction of a shaman. It is carved out of a mammoth tusk and is the oldest figurative piece of art we have ever found. Several female figurines have been found in the European area, all with similar voluptuous features. The purpose of the female figures is debated. They have been thought to be a mother goddess, carved to increase women's health and fertility, or to be worshipped generally by the whole family. These figurines are called Venuses, but it should be noticed that Venus is a reference to Roman art, which didn't develop until thousands of years later. Art historians years ago looked at these and thought, women, sexy, Venus, because it made sense at the time. Ceramics starts showing up as early as 20,000 BC in China and Japan. In the Xianrendan cave, several pieces like this were found with clear decorative markings. In Japan, the Jomon culture was prolific in making pottery, and the advancements they made can be seen over time. In Mesopotamia, there were similar advancements. From simple vases to this Nazi bowl? This is actually a swasti. It shows up in several cultures in the Middle East and India. The name is Sanskrit, swa meaning good, and sti meaning there is. It is a symbol of peace, prosperity, and goodness. And it was good. Until someone ruined it. So when you see this in old pottery, don't think that, think this. So anyway, there is a large collection of wonderful pieces of pottery from Mesopotamia, all showing high creativity and craftsmanship. We can't talk about the origins of civilization without talking about Egypt. Egypt had started its rise in history with the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt. One beautiful artifact, the Palette of Narmer, shows this unification story. Made around 3,500 BC, it's not only important for Egyptian history, but represents the transition away from the Stone Age and into the ancient world. The Palette of Narmer is large and has carvings on both sides of the siltstone slab. King Narmer is shown on one side of the palette wearing the crown of Upper Egypt, striking an enemy. A similar scene of victory is on the other side, except he is wearing the crown of Lower Egypt. This shows him as ruler for both parts of Egypt. Note the unusual depiction of biology, with the head and legs depicted from a side angle, while the chest appears to be facing forward. This is a stylization choice, not a misunderstanding of biology. Several figures on the palette have more accurate anatomy. It is thought that Narmer looked more powerful with a broad, forward-facing chest, and this is the reason he is portrayed this way. Amazingly, the style created at the end of the Stone Age would continue for thousands of years after its invention. Some other interesting parts of the palette are the decapitated and castrated enemies, the dying men inside the walls of a city, the sandal bearer, and the dead men being trampled by a bull. So what was this palette used for? It was actually a makeup palette. Eyeliner would be ground with water in this hole. Nowadays it may seem weird to have this kind of imagery on a makeup palette, but it does provide us with some historical context and knowledge we otherwise would not have had. Stone Age artworks are often considered artifacts as opposed to true art, even though they are the basis for everything that comes after them. If we look at these pieces in the context of the time period, they are spectacular works that we are lucky to see survive all these years. When you look at a magnificent piece of art, try to remember where it all started and appreciate the journey it took to get there.